What is something fresh in your heart that God has been teaching you recently? What is something fresh in your heart that God has been teaching you recently?
I'll tackle that one. For me, and I think we've had some conversations along the way that have kind of helped shape me and my transformation in this space, is I had to come to the realization that I'm a control freak. And what I'm learning to do is some pretty loud amens in the audience there. What I'm learning to do is I'm learning to give away control in certain areas, certain spaces, and certain places in my life. As it relates to ministry, I think back to where our church started. And where our church started, all these roles and positions that we have now, and phenomenal team and tremendous people that we have that are serving in our ministry now, I was filling a significant portion of those roles, right? So as the ministry began to grow, this was kind of like my baby. So, it's kind of like when I had my kids, it was always difficult for me to take my kids to the babysitter the first time. I'm relinquishing my child into somebody else's control. Well, when it came to ministry, I discovered that there were certain things that I was holding on to, and it was very tough for me to let it go, because I viewed that as like my baby. So in this season, I'm learning to give control. And what I'm learning is there are people that are more gifted than me in certain areas. There are people who can do the job not only as well as me, but they can actually do it better. So in this season, I'm learning, begrudgingly sometimes, to give away control.
That's a tough one, honestly, I think, because, part of why you've succeeded in various areas of your life is because you took control of something, right? You were proactive and you maybe had a better way to do it or whatever, right? So in a sense, you've been rewarded for taking control of something. And so you start to try to assess the risk of letting that go. And there are certain things I do think as leaders, like you see some people who are really successful doing really good things. And sometimes you'd be surprised how granular that they'll go. Some of the details they'll jump in like that. They don't just go, hey, whatever you guys want to do. Like in a sense, like a lot of times they'll get really into something you wouldn't necessarily know that they would. And so I think kind of knowing as a leader, like how do I assess that risk? And then how do I stay tuned in to how it's going instead of sticking my head in the clouds and my fingers in my ears, closing my eyes and hope it's going good. I got to somehow have a feedback loop. I got to be able to know how it's going so that I can trust. Okay. So no, I think I feel you on that. I think, man, for me, God's teaching me right now is how to actually be at peace in some ambiguity and peace with not having an answer to stuff. So usually I like answers. Again, as a teacher, you teach, you have the answer. You want to stand up and go, okay, now here it is. I've cracked the code. It's step 1, step 2, step 3, and make sure you have an answer. And people ask me questions. I feel like I need to have an answer. I feel like I need to know an answer. In fact, when I started pastoring and preaching, one of my visceral fears was somebody was going to ask me a Bible question and I didn't have the answer. And I didn't know I was going to look stupid, And so actually, ironically, the more I've really, really become a better and better student of the Bible, the more I realize that things maybe that were even given to me as dogmatic, open and shut, like this is right, you can look and go, I don't know. Like that could be interpreted that way. Absolutely. They could interpret it that way. That's just as plausible that it could be this. And again, my nature is I all my life felt like I needed to get sure about it. I needed to get like, nope, this is it. And then I'm going to argue for it. And I find myself, I feel like the Lord's working in my heart to come to peace with like, I don't know. It could be that. It could be this. I think it's probably this. Yeah. But I don't know that I know, I don't know that I feel like, I've felt a need over time, and I've actually people almost kind of pressure you at times, like you need to take a hard stand on that. Yeah. And it's like, well, you have a hard stand on it because you don't really understand it very well.
Well, and I think in some instances, I think it is incredibly arrogant of us to think that we're supposed to have all the answers, right? And I think where I've become relatively comfortable is I don't always have to wear the mask and cape, right? Yes, people may look at you as a hero, but you're as much human as you are hero, In the same way that the congregation lives in and maybe wrestles with their humanity, right? I think us as leaders, we do the same. And I think one of the beauties that I come to appreciate about you is I think you find a great balance. And man, you're just Greg Ford that happens to be Pastor Greg Ford. And, it's relatable, it's captivating, and I think it's what has really been some of the secret sauce to the success of your ministry in One Church.
I appreciate you saying that. I think with the Bible, right, we so badly want to get it right. We really want to get it right. And I think, again, to me, I had that deep need for that. And I think there's some of it, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get to heaven, and Paul's going to be like, bro, that's not what I meant, dude. That's not what I meant.
That's not the interpretation.
Well, I mean, even, I was talking to the church the other day at a 1 Corinthians 5, he's like, hey, you guys misunderstood my last letter. Yeah. In chapter 5, he's like, I wrote you a letter before, which we don't have that letter. I wish we did. Yeah. But he's like, you totally misinterpreted, because he was talking to them about sin, and he was like, you guys thought I was talking about the world. I was talking about you guys. Yeah. And internally, like, what kind of environment you're supposed to have, and what you do when people just run around and they're bragging about sin and they're not accountable. And they're not humble, and they're getting defensive, and now they become predator. He's like, I was talking about you guys. You guys misunderstood my letter, thought I was talking about everybody out there. Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm thinking, like, well, how much of it am I messing up on his other letter,
I think about Jesus and his dialogue with his disciples, right? This is his inner circle. These are his guys who he's living with, he's doing ministry with. He's spending literally almost 24/7 with them. Right? And he's teaching the multitudes, and then they're coming back asking questions, and basically Jesus is like, fellas, y'all missed it.
He's like, Philip, have you been with me all this time?
Bro,
and you
it's 3.5 years, and bro, you still haven't caught the lesson, man. So,
yeah.